I'm Kristen Andre, founder and chief strategist of Andre Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We will focus on how you can break through limits. We will equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with Bea Slater and her son, Mitch Slater, and they are joining us from up in New Jersey. So very excited to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And you know, I've had the opportunity, Mitch and I have known each other for a few years via the financial world. And, you know, Mitch does a lot of social media as I do. So I've been able to follow your career, Bea. So I was so excited that you were willing to be on the show because, you know, we named the show No Limits because it's about talking to people about pushing through limits and not letting anything stand in your way. And so frequently I hear people say, it's too late for me to do this or too late for me to do that. So, you know, as I introduce you, a couple really cool things about you is your son is, as anyone that knows him knows, is a huge Springsteen fan. But you have the opportunity. You've got a nice little relationship with Stevie Van Zandt, who is in Springsteen's band and was also on The Sopranos, for those of you guys that listen that followed The Sopranos. So talk about that, because that was probably the first time I saw you on stage. You got to introduce him at his shows.
Well, it came about, it was very strange. Mitchell decided to take me to one of Stevie's concerts, because he always talks about him, but he said, I'll only take you if it's in a theater, not an open place. I said, fine. So he made a little video of me talking about the concert, and he got me a t-shirt. And he made this little video that I was all excited to go to the concert and to meet Stevie, and we'll see what happens. And lo and behold, somebody who works with Stevie saw it and told it to Stevie.
Actually, no, I'll pick it up.
No, he knows better.
Okay. So what? Actually, Stevie saw it.
Stevie saw it, right.
And I was at a show about a week before this particular show, and I was it was after the show, and I was hanging out backstage with Stevie and some other people, and he comes up to me, and you know, he's so funny. He always has this nice glass of red wine after his concerts, and he comes up to me and he goes, "I got a really good idea. Give me your email." He said, "I don't want to tell you about it yet." I said, "All right, give him my email." The next morning I wake up. He sent me an email at 2:30 in the morning with a script. And he said, talk to me about it at the next show. And I read the script and I realized it was an opening for his concert. And clearly I knew what he was talking about. And I saw him, I think 2 nights later at another show. And he said, so do you think Bea will do it? I said, of course she'll do it. I said, no problem. He says, all right, have her get here at 4 o'clock. We do a sound check and we'll work it out. So I came over to the house. And what I did was I put the script using a teleprompter app on my iPad. And I just said, Mom, can you read this? And I didn't tell her anything. And you practiced it.
And I read it.
And then I think it sort of hit home what was going to happen. Right?
So they didn't tell you were going to do the opening.
No.
They kind of tricked you. Mitch Slater.
And then when Mitchell when he showed me the script, and then he said to me, Stevie wants you to open the show. I said, oh, Mitchell, that's not for me. I'm an old lady. Well, why am I going to be up on a stage? No, he wants it.
I don't remember that, actually. You said, of course I'll do it.
Well, no, that was with JJ.
Oh, JJ.
That was with JJ.
It's hard to keep track.
It's your media appearances are so...
Right, but he didn't give me a chance. He said, we're going to Staten Island, and we have to be there at 4 o'clock, and wear your shirt. And he picked me up, and we went. And we went backstage, and they gave me a tag to wear. And Stevie came out. And I have to tell you, I had never met the man. He is, without a doubt, the nicest man. He's nothing like in Sopranos. Nothing like that.
He's not killing people or anything.
No, and he's just such a nice, sweet man. So he said, look, You're going to do fine. I said, well, I don't want to disappoint you because I'll feel terrible. He said, no, we got out on the stage. He wanted to rehearse. And he said, this is the script, but we're going to have teleprompters. I said, thank goodness, because I probably would forget, even though I have a good memory, that would go by me. So I did it. And he said, you're fine, you're fine. And I thought they were going to have the curtain open because he has this big band and some women singers in the back. Oh, no, he says, we're closing the curtain and there'll be a spotlight on you.
Just another fan like you that happens to be 90 years old. For those of you looking for me in the Twitterverse, you can find me at MomAGoGo90. As you can imagine, I've seen quite a lot of shows in my day, but you ain't never seen nothing like this. You are about to witness the swinginest, ginchiest, rockinest, awesomest, super rad band in the land. Are you ready? I say, are you ready? Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul.
And there were how many people in that audience?
It was about 5,500 people in the theater.
It's a beautiful new
theater
that was refurbished.
And it's, it's beautiful red curtain
and carpet and seats.
The funniest thing, actually, and you could link to this on your podcast if you want, I can give you the YouTube, is the actual rehearsal. That to me was even better than the performance.
Yeah.
The rehearsal's hysterical.
So when you come up there, somebody like Paul or Gary, somebody will be right with the mic. We'll hand you the mic. Okay. They come right to the here.
That's my spot.
Then that spot, there'll be a spotlight on you. Carl, you there, Carl? Right? When she walks out to the middle, you're gonna hit her with a spotlight. This is the last spotlight I want to see all fucking night. Thank you. Do you have one handy now or no?
For family only, not
all right, well, you'll see the spotlight. Okay. All right? And then you just do it.
Should I do it now?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Bea Slater. Don't bother Googling me, I'm a nobody. Just another fan like you that happens to be 90 years old. For those of you looking for me in the Twitterverse, you can find me at MomAGoGo90.
Go, Mom.
Go-go. What did I say?
Mama Go-Go.
All right. Sometimes I screw up.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
As you can imagine, I've seen quite a lot of shows in my day, but you ain't never seen nothing like this. You are about to witness the swinginest, ginginest, rockinest, ginshiest, rockinest, awesomest, super rad band in the land. Are you ready? I said, are you ready?
Yeah. Keep the mic there.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, that's it.
I have seen the future of rock
It's not fitting. It's not fitting on the screen, Joel.
and soul. Oh no.
The whole thing has to move over to the left. You got it. You putts. You got it. All right.
Okay. Okay. I said, are you ready?
Yeah.
I have seen the future of rock and soul, and its name is Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul.
Stephen his language is very salty, and he's telling them exactly how they want it.
And he's saying, put the light here.
He's telling her what to do and what gestures she should do.
And I'm standing there. My daughter came with us, and she's in the audience watching. And the people, there were a lot of people there. It was early. And they were all yelling out things and talking. And finally, he said, no, that curtain is going to be closed. When he said to me, you're going to be in the spotlight, I felt like,
he wanted you to have the spotlight. I think
he wanted me to have the spotlight, and I did. And I didn't make one mistake. My daughter said you went perfect because Mitchell was standing next to me.
I saw the video. It was pretty impressive.
I was not supposed to stand next to her. I wasn't planning on going on stage. And she grabbed me. And after the show, Stevie said, what were you doing up there?
Yeah,
he said it a little differently.
Well, you know, what's interesting to me is most people at 91, because I know you just had a birthday. So at 91, most people are not opening concerts for rock stars that were on The Sopranos.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I'm so impressed with, because I hear all the time, it's too late. People just retire and they sit at home. So
and they don't want to go out.
They don't want to go out. So not only is that out of your comfort zone, it sounds like, to be in and pushing through the limits of wanting to, being comfortable with being on stage, but you've taken that a step further. So JDate, for those of you guys listening who may not be familiar, is a dating site for Jewish people. You're the official face of JDate now.
Yeah.
So you went through an audition. I remember seeing it on social media. And for those of you guys that want to follow along, Miss B here is on Twitter. She's pretty active on Twitter. So she's got
I'm on
nice
a lot
follow.
of things.
Yeah.
Mama Go-Go 90.
Mama Go-Go 90 on Twitter. Yep. But
that's right.
What made you want to try out at the age of, I think you were 90 when you tried out.
I was 90. Mitchell's a pusher. And he's always pushing me for
He had
something.
to have gotten that from somewhere, though.
He was our bonus.
And she got it from her father.
And my father,
this is a long line of
my
of
father
hands
was he wasn't an actor, but he was very outgoing.
Yeah.
And he was very funny. He was a photographer,
movie maker
in Philadelphia. Yeah. And he was far beyond his time. He came up with things that were invented many years later, believe it or not.
Wow.
Anyway, it was quite a night, and everybody made such a fuss over me in the audience. When I walked down, you know how when you see celebrities and they touch your hand, and everybody wanted to touch my hand. I don't know
and
why.
take selfies.
So you kind of like the now, are you a selfie? Are you perfected the selfies yet?
Oh, I can take selfies, and I was in a lot of them. Oh yeah, they showed me how my kids showed me how to do it.
So how did JDate come along though?
Well, this was funny. One of my neighbors is on Facebook on a different kind of page where it's about young mothers. Well, her children are not that young, but she was on it. And she reads this little bleep that says, "We know there's someone in Springfield, where I live, that was 90 years old that was on with Stevie Van Zandt. And JDate are looking for older women for commercials." So my neighbor wrote back to this woman. She said, "It's my neighbor." She said, "She's my neighbor. It's Bea Slater." Well, she called Mitchell.
Actually, she sent me a Facebook message.
Yeah, right.
With the
ad. You gotta love the
ad.
Power of social media with this.
Absolutely. And this is a great social media
It was
story.
a Saturday, and I was in my supermarket, King's Supermarket in Short Hills, New Jersey. I'll give them a plug. It's the best market there is. And I'm standing there shopping right by the meat counter. I remember exactly. My phone rings because I carry the phone. And
iPhone 7.
Yeah.
91 years old. iPhone 7 Plus.
That's how she tweets.
Yes.
And it's Mitchell on the phone. And right away, I always say, what's wrong? What's the matter? What are you calling me in the market? He said, "Well, I didn't know where you were, but I want to ask you something." And he tells me this about JDate. He said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm interested." Meanwhile, he called my other son, who lives in North Carolina, to tell him before he told me. And my son, Jeffrey, said, "Oh, Mom will never want to do that." Well, he was wrong. And Mitchell called him and said, "You were wrong. Mom said she'll do it."
Immediately.
Next thing we know, we get a thing to come into Brooklyn.
Yeah, I sent, when I saw the information on the audition, I immediately sent an email with the video of the Steve Van Zandt, a little bit of her background, and within 5 minutes, my phone rang, and it was Paul Bernstein. He and his wife Donna Bernstein, they have the casting agency, and he called me and he said, "I just saw this. Can your mom come in on Tuesday?" I didn't even ask her. I said, "Of course."
He signed you up. Yep.
I was glad it was Tuesday because it was the week of Thanksgiving, and I was heading to Michigan.
Yeah, that's right.
Her and my daughter and we went in. And my sister, we went in and went to the audition.
And it's, what's been interesting is I saw a lot of your posts throughout that process. Obviously, it was pretty secretive until you got the part. But now, for those of you guys listening who are in New York, New Jersey, you are on billboards and bus stops.
Oh.
And I mean, this thing got
all through
huge.
Brooklyn and New York.
Right.
And there's that famous cheesecake, Junior's Cheesecake. It's made in Brooklyn. And that was the biggest post. That was above
the billboard that was above it. I saw that. Yeah.
They had over 300 charging stations, bus stops, subway, before you go down in the subway, actually in the subway, as well as billboards. They had a few other billboards throughout the city. But the big one was,
the one
over Junior's.
Junior's.
And I can't tell you how many people
saw it.
That's
just out of the blue.
And people that didn't know who I was and then found out. I think Mitchell's daughter in college, she had some of her friends saying, "Oh, my mother saw her with somebody named Slater," and she said, "My grandmother."
Yeah. Well, actually, what happened was my daughter was studying abroad in Italy, and she started seeing posts from friends that she went to camp with and school, not knowing that this was her grandmother, and saying, "Oh my God, I just saw this in New York City. This is the cutest thing. It's hysterical." And Georgia, my daughter, immediately said, "That's my grandmother."
That's my grandma.
And you know what was so nice? When he brought me in that morning into Brooklyn, they were the nicest people to work with. And there were some lovely women. I think I was the oldest.
Yes,
and
you were.
I was the oldest.
You looked the youngest, but you were the oldest.
Yeah, and a couple of them had done it before.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, "You never did this?" I said, "No. If I lived in New York, maybe I would. But I don't live in New York, and I wasn't going to come in." Well, they treated me royal. I want to tell you, and all the women. And I just couldn't believe it. And then they told Mitchell that I was going to get the most money because I'm going to be the star
of it.
I don't
know. Well, exactly. I think that's fantastic. So all right. So we've learned a little bit about you. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear, Bea, what's next for supermodel Bea Slater. So we'll be back in just a minute. Hey everyone, check out my podcast, No Limits with Kristen Andre, on Tuesday nights at 7:30. We will tackle the things holding you back and the limits you set on yourself and equip you with some strategies to lead more intentional lives. Podcast launches every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on facebook.com/Andre Group. That's facebook.com/ANDREE Group. We'll see you there. Hi everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are chatting today with Bea Slater and her son Mitch Slater. And Bea is the new face of, I guess not new, but face of J-Date and supermodel at the ripe young age of 91. So we were chatting a little bit during the break about kind of this transition with what you starting to do more and doing. And Mitch, you mentioned, several years ago when your dad passed. Well, tell me the transition there. What?
Sure.
You guys
roughly, I mean, listen, my mom has always had a positive attitude throughout life. And my grandfather, her father, came here when he was 5 years old or 6 years old on a boat from Russia. His parents were dead. He had two sisters who stayed in Russia, came here, with nothing but an uncle in Newark, New Jersey, and, built a life and built a family over the years, and was always a very, very outgoing person and had the most positive attitude of anyone. I had lived to be 96.
Oh, wow.
And had this positive attitude. And my mom always had a positive attitude growing up and was always, very supportive when I went out to California and tried my acting career for a little bit and all the other crazy things. Being the youngest, I'm the youngest by 10 years. I definitely had the most flexibility to go out and try different things in life. But in 2009, when my dad passed away, my mom and my dad were married for 62 years.
Oh, wow.
And my dad had been my partner early in my career at Merrill Lynch. Quite frankly, I thought Mom would go off a cliff just because it was a just rough period.
And that happens a lot.
And it does happen a lot.
Happen.
But she made the decision that wasn't going to happen.
I mean, I had a lot of friends that were still alive at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot, of course, that are gone, that were older than me. But I tried to be active. I belonged to a temple. and we had a nice group there, and we went on little trips and did things. But I made up my mind that I was not going to stay in the house every day. I don't care if I only went to the post office, if I went to a cleaner, if I went to a market, or I went out and I didn't mind even eating by myself. It was a nice diner I liked. I'd go there sometime. And the man was very impressed because he knew I liked Springsteen too.
Yep.
And I just made up my mind. I would just do things as best I could. And right after my husband died, Leslie, Mitchell's wife, she works for Time. Well, it was Time Magazine. It's now been bought out.
Still Time.
It's still Time, but it's another company,
Right.
Whatever. And Tuesday night was her late night. And she said to me, how would I like to make dinner Tuesday night for Mitchell, Harrison, and Leslie? The children were still in school.
And let me just point out, it's
Yeah.
not that I wasn't capable of making
Yeah.
dinner. I was on the Board of Education.
Let's get that straight.
Yeah,
right,
let's get
right,
this
right.
straight. I was on the Board of Education at the time, and our meetings were every Tuesday night
Every
at 7:30.
Tuesday night with a meeting.
So,
Okay.
And there was
Yeah.
always something. Now, she didn't do that for her. She did it for me. I have
Yeah.
a beautiful article that somebody from my temple wrote up, what I've been doing, and how Leslie did it for me. Not that I had to do it, but every Tuesday, I would cook at home most of the time and bring the food. Sometimes, if it was last minute things, I'd bring them. And I'd come over in the afternoon, and I get there before Georgia and Harrison got home from school. I always came with donuts or cupcakes or something. And it was so nice when they walked in and I was there. And then I made dinner. And occasionally Georgia would have a friend or Harrison would have a friend. I always made enough. So there was always dinner. And I did that for a good 5-6 years. Finally, I didn't want to drive at night. And it was only 10 minutes away. And then I felt that it was getting a little bit too much for
well,
me.
and Harrison went to
And
college.
Harrison went
so-
to college, and then Georgia got involved with things. And I said, that'll be it. But they made me a beautiful book that we can't find.
No, we'll find
We're
it
going to
eventually.
find it. It's called Tuesdays with Bea. And it shows me on pictures and articles what I made for
Of
dinner.
what you done.
And it was the most wonderful. It
That's
gave me
fantastic.
such a lift. And all my friends said, oh, my God, how can you do that? I said, I love doing it. And I sit down with people at dinner. I'm not alone.
Right. And
And
I
I
love the
didn't-
fact you're getting out, like you said, you made it a point to get out of the house and do something every
Always,
day,
always,
which a lot of
always.
people, regardless of age or losing a spouse, a lot of people don't move forward.
They don't do it.
They don't go. So
The
what?
only time it's hard is when the winter comes and it gets dark so early.
Sure. Yeah.
But I manage to do things, and if I don't go out, or if sometimes Mitch will take me out or whatever, my
Yeah.
daughter comes down during the week, during the day, and she'll take me for lunch or we'll do something. But I don't sit in the house and mow.
Yep.
I mean, that's no way of living. I mean, you
No,
may as
not
well
at
be
all.
dead.
Not at all. And I know
No.
you have big dreams coming up and some things you want to do. I know some of the things I've seen. We got to get you on Gary Vaynerchuk show because I know you're a big Vaynerchuk fan.
We're working
Yeah,
we're
that's
working
what
on
he's
that.
Working on
Gary-
getting there.
Gary-
I don't know
Gary's
about the
very
language, but Gary, I can't wait for that. I'm excited because I know that's a goal of yours is to be on Gary's.
That will happen. That will
I
happen.
just.
Well,
I-
that and she
yeah.
wants to throw out the first pitch at,
Oh,
at a
I
New
know.
York
well,
Met game.
you know,
I'd
she and
love
I
to go to- yes.
I do know that. So you've been a Mets fan for how long?
Since they started. Because I was originally from Philadelphia, my family would root for the Phillies. And my husband was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. The day the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to California, my husband said, that's it. We're going to drop that team. And the Mets had just started.
Mhm.
We'll be Met fans. And we've been Met fans ever since.
So what year
Good
was
or bad?
that? What year was
1962.
that? 1962. Okay.
The Dodgers left New York in 57, and there was no way in the world that my father
No, would never
be
root
a
for-
New York Yankee fan.
And the Yankees he didn't like,
Right.
and he would
Yeah.
not root for the Dodgers in
In LA.
In LA.
I think you'd be
You know.
fantastic to throw out the first pitch
I
at the
would
Mets
love to,
game.
but-
And you know,
gonna happen.
I was sharing with Mitch. They just had, I don't know if you saw, they just had the Major League Baseball draft. And I have a girlfriend whose son was on the U.S. national team, and he was just drafted, the number 6 pick straight out of
Really?
high school, and he's going to be playing for your team, for the New York Mets.
Really? Oh,
He was drafted by the Mets.
Drafted by the
He's-
Mets. So
Yeah, I read all his statistics.
name
I wish he would come play immediately.
Yeah,
I think
he's-
he needs to skip single A, double A, and triple A.
you think he
and
could do
show
that?
up
Can we
at
make a
Citi
play
Field.
for that too? So yeah, he's a straight. Jared Kelnick's his name. He
Yeah.
was. They showed him on the draft, and the Mets have been
Yeah.
tweeting about him. So so hopefully
must
he'll
be
be
good.
there. He's got to be good. I mean, he's from
Gotta
what
be
I
good.
understand. I mean, his family. I know his mom well, and she's fantastic, great family. So I will be very excited to see him come out there. Maybe if mom goes into town, I'll have to come check out a Mets game. But,
Sure.
So
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
how do we get you throwing out the first pitch? How's your arm? You ready to throw it?
Well, it's pretty good. It's not 100%, but I think I could manage
It's
it.
better than half the people that
Yeah.
have thrown out the first
All right.
pitch.
So
You can work with it.
you have bigger dreams at 91. I love the fact that you have bigger dreams than a lot of people that just are just sitting back and letting life happen to them. So we're talking about Gary Vaynerchuk throwing out the ball at the Mets game. What else?
And
Yeah.
Mrs. Maisel, let's not forget that.
Well-
There's a show on Amazon called The Marvelous Mrs.
Oh, I
Maisel
did hear about that.
that just
yeah.
had an open casting call.
We haven't been
We haven't
called.
heard back yet,
They
but
may have cast
we haven't had a
people.
chance to, actually
It's
go to a
okay.
casting
It's
call.
all right, Mitch.
Well, but we sent something in, and I have my wife has a cousin who's a TV director in California. She directs This Is Us, amongst
Oh.
many other great shows. She's
Such a
getting
good-
me the names of some casting directors that work with seniors. So we're not done yet.
Yeah.
This kid isn't done yet. This
That's
is early.
right. So at 91, did you think that, man, this is going to get this big?
Never. Never.
Yeah.
These two things, if I never do another thing, I will have reached my goal.
That's fantastic.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah.
I feel if I never do, it's like everybody said, why don't you go on J-Date and find a husband? Never.
You're just going to go on J-Date and be J-Date. You'll be
I
the
don't want another husband.
Yeah.
And I've had my life, and I've had a good life,
Yeah.
and I have no complaints.
Yeah. Well, my complaint is that I used to be proud of when I'd Google my name, how many hits I would get. Now that she has 10 times more
When
hits.
she has a
from all
greater
the
Twitter
articles.
following than all of us. Yep.
Well, and the thing that and every Jewish newspaper in the
Oh.
world contacted her
I have
and
copies.
written a story, including the Chronicle, which is in
The
London,
biggest
Turkey,
Jewish paper in London.
Israel, France,
Yeah, and local.
and all over. I mean, every
Oh, that's
Jewish it got
fantastic.
picked up in the Jewish network.
Everybody picked it up.
So between that and some local TV and radio and podcasts,
And I
like
still,
yours.
I'll meet people I know,
Yeah.
in the supermarket. Oh, God, B, you look great. I saw your picture in the paper.
Oh, that's
There's
great.
nothing greater than for me to be Bea Slater's son.
That's
I'll
right.
tell you. It's great for my career.
So B, what advice do you have for people who are just kind of letting life happen to them?
Well, I mean, if that's their decision, that's their decision. But why? Why should you sit back and just let the time go by? Do something. And there are a lot of people that do things. And I know people that do belong to organizations and do a lot of work. And I feel that I did what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very pleased. And maybe I could do more, maybe not. But, whatever it is, it is. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's life. And I don't know. I sort of believe in fate a little bit. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yep.
My mother was a fatalist. She always talked that way. And I think I'm just like her.
Yeah.
And she believed that way. So I do worry about things. I know I do.
I think we
And,
all do. Yeah.
But we all do. And sometimes I'll have a solution. Sometimes I don't. It's funny. Today I said something to my daughter. She always has a solution because I've had a little plumbing problem with one of the bathrooms. And she said, I'm trying to remember exactly what she said. Well, you know what? Just don't use that bathroom because I have two other bathrooms. I said, Diane, you always know the answer. And that's what I love about you. She always finds a solution. And it's good. My kids are like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they back me up.
Well, and I think that's important, having family behind you. So we're going to take another short break, and we'll be right back in a few minutes to kind of wrap up our time with Bea Slater. And I'd like to find out not only what's next, but what her challenge might be for you guys to push past limits. Be back in just a minute. Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Be sure and visit my website at www.andregroup.com. That's www.andreegroup.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Welcome back, everyone, to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are wrapping up our time with Bea Slater and Mitch Slater, and it's been so much fun talking to you because I'm just so inspired by your story. And one of the things we were talking about on the break, because I was thinking about the difference between how life is now and everything with social media, you know, you yourself being very involved in social media and Twitter and everything. I was thinking about how different things were in your 91 years. So Mitch mentioned on the break, you were born the day that Lindbergh took his first solo flight. So let that sink into you guys listening for a minute. That's a big difference. So the day that he took his first solo flight, which is such a monumental day in history, compared to now, that's a lot of changes over one lifetime.
I've seen a lot of changes in my 91 years. I remember when the Hindenburg went on fire. I remember the day Roosevelt died.
Wow.
I remember the day Amelia Earhart was lost. I mean, all these things are embedded in my head, memories.
Yeah.
And all the things and how different, how we had newspapers twice a day and mail twice a day.
And a milkman.
And the milkman came
right.
to the door.
And now
Iceman.
it's 24/7. Yeah.
And we didn't although my father was a photographer, we always had a camera and we have many pictures to prove it, but nobody had the cell phones, and you had a telephone with a party line. That's how the phones were.
That's
and then
how you did everything.
If my father made more money, he said, no, we're getting a private phone. And we had one phone.
How about
and
that?
I lived on a wonderful street in Philadelphia, grew up. I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything.
So with the changes today, with the way the world is today, because you mentioned, you know, newspaper twice a day, which is how everybody got their news. In today's world where we are 24/7 media, I mean, what advice do you have for people to really kind of live in the moment and appreciate what's going on around them as opposed to just trying to consume everything?
Well, I think people do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good. I still like the years I grew up. I have to admit, I liked how we walked to school and nobody said, oh, be careful, don't this, don't that. I liked all that. I liked how the teachers were, how they taught the children, how respectful they were.
Yep.
And they walked out of school not looking like some of these children are dressed, unless you go to a private school.
Yeah.
When I see the girls, some of them. But, you know, that's life. Things change.
Yep.
I can't change it either way. But
Yeah.
that's the way it is. And we have to accept it. There's nothing we can, you know, the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly.
And I'm glad I have my phone. I love my phone. And I love my computer.
Yep.
And every night before I go to bed, I check it. Make sure there's something on I want to see, and I'm glad. I'm glad of that. And I'm happy to see, you know, that I have 4 great grandchildren. I never expected to see that
That's
in my
wonderful.
lifetime.
Yeah.
I would add one thing and kind of a message to my generation, baby boomers, and maybe the generation after, is that don't give up on your parents just because they're 70 years old or 80 years old or 90 or 91 years old. There's no limits to what these people can do.
I know.
And there's no, I mean, you know, it's very easy. And unfortunately, we've seen this in our own family with other relatives where there's no real respect. And you know, it's not exactly throw mama from the train, but it's not great. All right. And there's the history inside here and the knowledge about what's happened over the last 91 years can only be helpful to help the new generation, the Gen Z generation today, especially, because it's interesting how things kind of come back. And I'm seeing more of that in my kids' generation, wanting to spend less time being connected and more time being in real life.
And connecting with people. Yeah.
Right.
And my grandchildren always ask me questions like when I grew up or what did I do and things. And it's nice. They want the information because I've got it.
Right. Absolutely.
I've got the information.
And it's
Once
so much,
I'm gone.
yeah, it's so much nicer to hear it from somebody who experienced it than to read it in a book.
Absolutely.
And there's no excuse for somebody that's in their 40s or 50s like myself, or 60s or 70s for them, unless they've got some medical issue that's different, to say that they can't do it. If it's your dream, go for it. A friend of mine who also wanted to be an actor, he moved out to LA earlier this year, and he's going for it. And plenty of people, you know, are changing careers and making differences in their lives because they're motivated and know that this is it. The most important commodity is time. That's all we have. We might as well make the most of it.
And I think that's an excellent point. And as I mentioned to you guys, and the listeners know that with every episode we issue a challenge, and we set up a Facebook group called it's at #NoLimitsMoment, and we encourage our listeners to get on there and talk about whatever the challenge is and whatever we face of them. So I think this episode, I feel like it's simple. I think it's getting out there and going for it. And I love, Bea, what the stories you've shared with us and what you've accomplished throughout your lifetime, not just in these past several years, but I so respect the fact and admire the fact that you're just going for it. And, my challenge to the listeners with this episode is to go for it. Find what you want and go for it, and share it with us on our group and our page. And I want you to find somebody that inspires you and share their story with us. Like I mentioned, when I first saw Bea online, I was like, this is the coolest thing. I emailed Mitch. I was like, I need to have her on the show because I'm just so excited that you're so excited at 91. And it's just hopeful for me and for my kids and everybody out there that, like, there's just so much life left to live. And I'd
That's
love,
what it is.
yeah. And I the opportunity for the listeners is get out there and live it and share that with us on the #NoLimitsMoment page, and just let us go. So,
And it's just what they always say, you only live once.
you only live
You
once.
only live once.
I love it. Well, Bea and Mitch, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
That's probably the casting agent.
That's
calling.
right, calling right now. I
They
can't wait to
phone
see
rings
what's
out of here.
next. Exactly.
No, I was hoping it wouldn't ring.
No, that's fine. That's
Thank
fine.
you so much for having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
I really
And
appreciate it.
good. Thank you so
It
much.
was
And
lovely.
thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. Until next week, go push past those limits.